Okay, we're going to call the Senate Committee on Judiciary to order. Welcome. We will be looking at bills, Senate Bill 31, 32, and 53 today. We also need to announce that the committee is being televised on the Senate TV. And Mr. Clerk, please call a roll to establish quorum.
Chairman Jones.
Here.
Senator Shoemaker. Senator Rocca. Here. Senator Colbeck. Senator Beda. Mr. Chair, you have 3 members present, a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Senator Rocca makes a motion to adopt the January 27, 2015 committee meeting minutes without objection. Minutes are adopted. We'll first take up Senate Bills 31 and 32. Senator Hood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, esteemed colleagues. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for taking up this legislation. What the legislation does, actually, Senate Bill 31 is the actual meat of the bill, and 32 it just adds a chapter to the Michigan Penal Code that codifies the crime in 31. And what the bill actually creates is an upgrade in the penalties for assault or assault and battery against a sports official or a coach. This came about, I was approached by some referees in Southeast Michigan that had some concerns about the increased aggressiveness that they had been encountering at different high school basketball games, little league games, and even we had a unfortunate incident of a referee who lost his life in a situation in Livonia, Michigan. And the referees came to me and says, hey, you know, can we get some help? Can we get some protections? That they were running into this. And we all know that we see these increases as attending as my nephew was in high school last or 2 years ago. We saw the increasing this once again aggression that was being put onto these officials. We want to make sure what we wanted to achieve in the bill is making sure that we curb this aggressiveness, that we make penalties to this aggression so that we don't have any incidents like the unfortunate incident that happened in Livonia. We wanted to put provisions in there to protect the umpires from or sports officials from anything. We've had incidents where folks have been followed to parking lots after the game, even followed home, or had some aggressive attentions toward them. Every official at some point in time in a game, probably more times than not, makes an unpopular call to one side or the other of the team, and that unpopular call is not going to be liked by one side or the other. I'm repeating myself. And so we see this, once again, we see this aggression. So this is basically, we want to make it as a deterrent for that. And we want people to understand that going after these officials in any aggressive manner is not acceptable at all. So with that, we wanted to make sure and do this so that we can avoid anything from happening like it happened before. And I'll take any questions, Mr. Chair, if you have them. Oh, I'll say that currently it's a simple assault is 93 days misdemeanor or $500 fine, and what this legislation does, it increases it to a 3-year felony or $10,000 fine against those officials.
Well, certainly, Senator, I agree with you that it's much more than a simple assault. Whenever you take all the emotion in a game and you bring it to the game and assault somebody at the game, you run the risk of the crowd getting involved and not just one person being harmed, but perhaps hundreds. And we've seen death in not only this state, but we've seen it in other countries where
Yes.
soccer games get out of control on a regular basis.
Yes.
So I like your work, and I think maybe it needs a little more tweaking, but I certainly like your work on this.
Well, one of the things we also want to look at, Mr. Chair, is that, you know, when this aggressive activity is being acted upon, we're actually in youth sports. We're setting a tone because we know youth imitate their parents. And we want to make sure that we're setting a good example. I know that parents are parents and they can parent their own children. It's not our job to parent their children. But we have to set some sort of structure, whereas that it takes a village to raise a child. And we're part of that village, and we need to make sure that that village is in the best form for those children to not imitate any aggressive behavior through life and through sports. This is one of the ways that we teach children life activities and how to interact with people. And when we see these types of actions happening, I think it's giving the wrong message to our children. And not only to our children, but when we see it in professional sports, as you just mentioned, Mr. Chair. You see it in soccer. You've seen it happen across the world when we have soccer games and things of that nature where the aggression gets spilled out onto the field. And once again, like you said, people really get hurt. And we want to do what we can do, and my thought of this legislation is try to make sure that that does not happen again. And we don't want to see another life lost based on anything like this, and anything that we can do to curb that from happening, I think is a positive thing.
Well, I certainly would agree that if the sports arena or high school, wherever the event may be, could post a sign that if you assault a sports official, it's a felony, it could have the same deterrence as when MDOT posts a sign along the highway. If you run over a state road worker, this is what can occur, what the punishment could be.
Yes.
So I think you're on the right track.
Yes, most definitely.
Do we have other questions? Senator Kobeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, I was going down the same line of reasoning that you were talking about, because it's kind of a dangerous step when you go off and start highlighting that one individual's profession or one individual, one class of individuals has different rights than another class of individuals, or has different penalties for being assaulted, has different penalties than somebody else. And that's a concern of mine, because now we're getting into having different values for different lives. And our laws are supposed to be meant for the equal benefit of all. They're supposed to apply equally to everybody. Now, one thing I've been most frustrated with my term in the Senate is I know that there are special, that is not the case on it, but I don't want to propagate further diversion away from the principle that we are all created equal. And that's my core concern philosophically. And I'm saying this in full context that the park that you mentioned where the referee died, I grew up playing sports in that park. I mean, I played baseball there. I drive by there on a weekly basis. It's off a 7 Mile and Bicentennial. That's exactly where I grew up. It's a reminder. I can't help it. Ever since that incident happened, every time I drive by there, I think about that. But I think you can accomplish some of the same intentions of this law without actually putting it into statute and creating this kind of dual, kind of the different standards for different people in different professions. I want to try to get away from that as much as possible. And I thought that the good chair's suggestion around this is kind of mostly in the area of a PR campaign, making sure that people understand that there are penalties. This isn't just because you're at a sporting event doesn't give you license to go off and abrogate all your responsibilities as a good citizen. So I appreciate the intention. I know your heart is noble in this regard. I just don't want to go off and get into this slippery slope of dividing us into groups. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate some of the comments on folks on the committee, and I think I originally sort of looked at it that way. And then you kind of look back and say, wait a minute, the same umpire, when they're not an umpire at a game, they have the same rights as everybody else, but they also have some certain different risks in certain different professions is why we may make these distinctions on it. And I see what you're doing, and I think it's actually, if it could prevent some violence there. If it brings a heightened public awareness of this issue, I think it's worthwhile. I certainly appreciate you bringing it forward. It was a horrendous thing that happened. When you think of sometimes how people get so caught up in a game that it actually kills somebody over a call, it's amazing, and I think it does speak to the majesty of law that we sometimes have to come in and look at. Maybe we need to look at these classes and look what's happening in society and address it accordingly. So I just wanted to thank you for bringing that forward.
Thank you, Senators. But we also have to be reminded that some of these officials or some folks that operate in these official capacities, they're volunteers. They do the volunteer work in their communities, and they do it to better their community. And they put themselves on the line for this, subject to ridicule. It might be, a very small community where 3 doors down you made a call against a neighbor's kid, and that neighbor is upset. And so you have to deal with that on a daily basis as you interact, as you walk up and down the street, or, potentially some aggressive behavior or any type of behavior. And we just have to realize that, these officials, they put, they're not getting paid, top dollar to be able to do this. They do it part-time or, like I say, volunteer, and they're putting themselves on the line for the community. And so I think that, in that case, that we need to put as much protection around them as we can, because it seems as though what we have right now is not working. And I say it's not working because we had that isolated incident, we had that incident, and we've had other incidents as well, but not to that degree. But one is too many. One time is too many, and if we can put some legislation together that can save one more life or stop something from happening again, I wish that we were able to put this legislation before and that situation never happened. But we are where we are today, and maybe we can put something together to stop that from happening. I appreciate the thought about separating different laws for different people in different sections, but I think in this case, sir, if we could stop one life or stop one assault or anything of that nature, I think it's well worth a piece of legislation.
Okay, thank you. See no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, chairpersons.
Now I'll invite up Christian, and I'm going to mispronounce your name, Beniewicz, wishes to speak in support of the bill.
Oh, that would help. I'm John Benewitz's wife, the referee that was killed in Livonia. And I do want to speak in support of this bill. We've been a sports family, since the get-go. I've been coaching for 25 years. My husband's refed for who knows how long. And we've always been around sports. And we've seen things evolve over the past, number of years. And as far as the abuse, both physically, verbally, that officials take is becoming ridiculous. And something has to change. There has to be something out there that deters people from attacking an official. And like I said, I've been coaching for 25 years. And I've given my 2 cents to my share of officials over the years. And when all of this happened, now never has it been to the extent where I ever was going to attack anybody. But they've heard it from me. But I like to take a spin and put some humor into it so I get away with it a little bit better. And when all of this happened, I honestly thought, well, how am I going to react differently? And there have been times where I've bit my tongue, but obviously it hit me pretty close to home. It doesn't necessarily hit everybody that close to home. And there has to be something out there to deter these people from taking their free pot shots at refs. Just this past weekend, I was coaching a 10-year-old team at the Y. Completely low-key, nothing hardcore. just a bunch of kids trying to learn the game. And in the middle of the game, which was a blowout, my team was pounding the other team pretty handily, and there was a call that one of the assistant coaches didn't appreciate. And since all of this happened this past summer, this is the first incident that I had had where I had had to deal with it, and I wasn't sure how I was going to react. The other coach started trying to go after the officials, not physically go after, but was trying to verbally attack the officials. The officials kept their cool and kept the game going, and the director was keeping score. And the director was explaining what the call was and why the call was made, and the assistant coach wouldn't let it go. To the point where the two of them stood up, started yelling and screaming at each other some more, and eventually were this close to each other. And I just saw flashes of what happened to my husband go through my head. And I have no idea where this came from, but I went up to the two of them and I said at the top of my lungs, listen, my husband was a soccer official, was killed this summer. It's because of fools like you that can't handle your aggression that he is now dead. This man asked you to walk. I suggest you walk. Thank God he walked. He thought twice about what it was he was doing, and he got up and he left. But if this bill is passed, I don't have to speak like that. I don't have to be the one, and I can't be everywhere. And I have told myself, since all of this happened, that I am not going to let John's death go in vain, that I will do everything in my power to bring an awareness to the problem that is out there. And I'm in a very unique situation in that, yes, my husband is the one who was killed, but at the same point in time, I have a 14-year-old son who's also an official. And I knew there would come a time, or at least I thought there would come a time, when I would have to hold the conversation with him, do you want to continue? That was a conversation I never had to have. Within about a week, he had said he wanted to continue in Dad's legacy. He wanted to follow in Dad's footsteps. Now, how can I tell my 14-year-old son, who's proud of his father, I don't know if I want you on the field? I don't know if I trust those that are going to be around you. Now, granted, at this point in time, he's not roughing much more than U10, U11, okay? And I'm not worried about those kids attacking him. The parents are another story, and he's heard his share. He's never been followed or verbally abused or anything along those lines. But that day may come. And if this bill is passed, then I feel a little bit better that I don't have to make a decision that I eventually might have to pull him off the field because I'm afraid for him. I'm not losing a second family member to somebody's stupidity out on a soccer field. And if there's something out there that can deter these people from doing something that's stupid, all because of a game, we need to have it done, plain and simple. Thank you.
Thank you very much for making the trip over here today. I know it's got to be really hard, and appreciate you coming in and telling us your story. Do we have any questions? Senator Kobeck and then Senator Bida.
Yeah, and I'd like to share sentiments of the chair, and thank you for coming here. I appreciate the idea that you're going off and doing something to try to fix the problem. And in general, there's a coarsening of the culture across the board, and it's not just affecting referees. And unfortunately, this is a case where we're having it for elected officials are subject to the same abuse. So you've got people that are volunteering on school boards. You know, they're not getting paid at all. They're getting some of the same abuse. I've got next-door neighbors. If you cross their lawn, their property line, or if you move over the property divide with their lawnmower, it gets into incidents you know, that analogous to a bad call on a field. And there's a coarsening of the culture that's going on right now, and I do appreciate that you're working to go off and make a difference on it. But I just I'm trying to look at the bigger picture on this and trying to see, do we really want to start dividing people into these special groups and having special laws applied to special groups? And I think what we can do is maybe appreciate the fact that we need to address the underlying problem here, which is not, you know, frustration with calls on the field. It's frustration to the heart, where people just don't value other people's lives as much as they used to. And I think that's a much broader issue than what happens just on playing field. I'd like to expand that to people's hearts across the board. And I just don't want to. Sometimes when you divide people into different groups, you actually sometimes could exacerbate that coarsening now, because now all of a sudden there's a label associated with specific behavior and specific circumstances that if you just took a step back and said you shouldn't treat anybody that way, which is what the current law is in regards to assault is assault. I don't care if you have pinstripes on or not. I think that's where we need to focus the discussion, just to start respecting people in general. But
Senator Bida.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much for your testimony. I could understand the difficulty in doing that, and I praise you for your courage in coming forward and talking about this. And I agree with you. I think we need this legislation. I think it will go some direction in trying to alleviate this problem. I know 23 other states have legislation like this currently. I know there's been cases in Michigan where people have been assaulted and it was just treated as a misdemeanor. I think putting a little teeth in this, these officials are in a different type of role. And my colleague talked about other individuals that are in there, but maybe we need to look at people performing certain duties that they are more likely to be victimized by this, and maybe we need to step up and say, hey, let's look at what we can do. I think on the broader scale, though, too, I think there's a coarsening of our culture. Civil discourse doesn't seem to be there, certainly in politics. We see that with some of the political groups. You see some of the verbiage in describing the president or members of Congress or whatever else. So I have a sympathy with you on that as a referee. I'm not sure what it is in our culture that yelling "kill the rep" when there's a call that people don't disagree with isn't taken with a grain, more than a grain of disgust and despair, because I think there's something really wrong there. But I think if this legislation that has been adopted by 23 other states is adopted in Michigan, I think it will go a long way in trying to address some of those issues. And I try not to be a political purist on any type of thing. When you start to look at things, I'm going to look at what's going to work, and I think it looks like it's working in some other states, and I think we really should take a look at this and pass this legislation. Thank you, and thank you so much again for your courage in coming to share your experiences with us.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, I have 8 more cards here, so I'd ask everybody please to try to go to 3 to 5 minutes in their testimony, please, so we can get through everybody. Robert Traub, supporting the bill from Lansing.
Thank you for allowing me to talk. I've been a registered official with the MHSAA for 26 years and a member of the MHSAA for 35 years. So I've seen a lot of things, and it's gotten bad, and I don't know what the answer is. And while I don't work a lot of youth sports anymore, it's really bad at the youth level, and it just works its way up. And I don't have a specific incident to bring up at this point other than 35 years of seeing it, and it's getting worse every year, and I don't know what the answer is. I wish I did.
Okay, seeing no questions, thank you for coming in. Carlos Ferlino, Michigan Referee Committee of Sterling Heights.
Thank you for listening to this bill. On May 19, 2002, I was assaulted during a adult men's game. I received 27 stitches, broken nose, a cracked eye socket, My wife received a call, you need to go to the emergency room. Your husband is okay, but you need to go to the emergency room. And just feel what that was to my wife and my kids. And the gentleman that did that to me just got a misdemeanor. I can appreciate Senator Colbeck's comments and your comments too. Don't look at it as separating two groups of people, but like you said, you as a kid played in that field. Actions like this are hurting, if I may, the American dream, are hurting the youth leagues. Parents don't want to put their kids into those leagues because of the actions of some people. So we're losing that. So look at not only the referee side, but also what's happening with kids. Kids don't have the opportunity to go out there and do extracurricular. Kids don't have the possibility of maybe doing something that sports gives them the opportunity. And these actions that are happening are destroying that, are destroying that American dream. So, you know, like Senator Bida said, 23 other states have done this. I've lived in Michigan for 40 years, and I always thought that Michigan was the best state in the country, the most progressive. But 23 other states have taken already actions to prevent or to try to deter actions like that, and we are lagging behind. And so we need to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. See no questions. Thank you for coming on. Francisco Villarreal, Michigan Soccer Referee Committee, from Holt.
Thank you, distinguished panel, and thank you, Senator Hood, for putting forth this legislation. I just want to speak very quickly on an issue that is not covered in the legislation. Currently in Michigan, there are approximately 5,000 soccer officials. Of that, approximately 1/3 are under the age of 18. These are individuals who may be athletes themselves, but there are some individuals who choose the profession of officiating. And what we're not recognizing in this legislation is that oftentimes, in one league in Michigan, for example, there were approximately 2,200 matches in the fall. There were no instances of physical assault on these young children, these young officials. There were at least 9 documented incidents where youth referees were chased to the parking lot or verbally assaulted and threatened. We need to address this issue not only at the physical assault, but at the continuum of behaviors, because as Mr. Foligno suggested, some of these officials have a dream of being the official at the Super Bowl or at the World Series or at the World Cup. And what we've seen from some of these individuals, and if you look at the last page of the transcript that I gave you, there is one young lady who absolutely walked away from officiating. There are other examples of people who have given up their dream. This is workforce development. This is physical activity. It's literacy, because you have to know the laws of competition. It's working with other people, and it's being able to make quick decisions that are for the betterment of a community and to help other people live their dreams. And so it's not necessarily a separation of people as is being discussed. It's about protecting officials who donate their time because of a passion or a commitment to help youth achieve their dreams and to facilitate adult community physical activity. As we know in this state, we have issues of obesity that need to be addressed, and we will do this through athletic participation. Thank you.
Thank you. See no questions. Thank you. James Dorman, a sports official from West Bloomfield.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Dwarman. I am a resident of West Bloomfield. I have a law practice in Troy. I've been a Michigan lawyer since 1987. I'm also an adjunct professor of law at Western Michigan University Cooley Law School, where I teach sports law. And I'm also a sports official. For 20 years, I've officiated high school basketball. I also officiate high school football and water polo. I'm registered with the Michigan High School Athletic Association. I'm a member of the National Association of Sports Officials, the Metro Detroit Officials Association, and the Michigan Water Polo Association. and I officiate throughout southeast Michigan, regularly in the Tri-County Metro Detroit area, but I also get out to St. Clair, Lapeer, Genesee, Livingston, Ingham, even Kent County. And I'm here to voice my support for the legislation and that of officials throughout the state and country. It's a shame that it took the homicide of the soccer official, whose wife spoke to you earlier, to bring this to your attention. 2 years ago, I raised this issue with my own state rep, who happened to sit on the House Judiciary Committee, but he never responded. My action then was prompted by 2 assaults that occurred on the same day, February 7th of 2013. The first occurred at a charter school in Detroit. We're following a middle school basketball game. An official was slammed across the face by a water bottle swung by an angry female spectator. And once the official separated himself from that person, a mob of angry spectators attacked him. Now, I don't want you to think that this type of assault is limited to, low-income areas or to immigrant soccer hooligans. So I want to show you a video of an assault that occurred also on the 13th, or excuse me, the 7th of 2013. On. This happened at Seaholm High School in Birmingham, Michigan. Seaholm sits in one of Michigan's wealthiest communities. Maybe Corey can assist me here in displaying. And what you're going to see happened following a junior varsity basketball game. That's a game among 15-year-old children. Junior varsity game. What you're going to see, eventually, we hope, is an official who comes from the left foreground. He's wearing a coat and hat, walking toward the exit doors when he's accosted by an angry parent. And the parent verbally assaults him all the way down the hall, just crisscrosses in front of him, gets right in the guy's face. And as they near the exit, the official stops because he doesn't want to go out in the parking lot with this guy chasing him and says, "Look, you better get back in the gym." And this guy takes a roundhouse right to the official's head, knocks off his glasses, dazes him, and then the guy runs back into the gym while the official's just trying to steady himself and get some help from some of the people who are sitting in the hall. Again, this is in Seaholm High School in Birmingham. Well, I'll just continue while he's maybe.
If you continue, if by some miracle
Yeah.
the technology works for us, we'll get it back on.
So, what'd the referee do to deserve this? He made a call or two which angered the parent of a player on the winning team. The winning team. And for his efforts, that official was paid $45. And out of that $45, he had to pay his own expenses and taxes. Now, is $45 worth the risk of assault? We heard about a lot of youth volunteer officials. Is it worth the risk of assault? We're not National Football League referees with armed security, and we're people moonlighting, and men, women, teenagers, from all walks of life. My own football crew has 2 retirees, a plant manager, and a gravedigger. My basketball referee partners are, a public school truant officer and a salesman. We're working because we love the game, and we're working for modest pay. We should not have to work a college, high school, little league, or rec department game in fear for our safety. We heard Senator Colbeck express concern, so I'd like to talk about what makes an assault upon a sports official different than an assault upon any ordinary citizen, and why should assaults and battery upon officials be considered a separate, more severe crime than misdemeanor assault and battery committed upon an ordinary citizen? The difference is that there's a national epidemic of assaults upon sports officials. Something's changed in society where too many people think it's okay to attack the referee, verbally and physically. These aren't isolated incidents. I think Senator Hood, used the word isolated once, and I don't think he meant to. Certainly, a murder is isolated. And you talk about separating classes, and you say, well, elected officials, we take grief too. Well, you have a security person sitting here in your room to protect you. We're on our own out on the basketball court, the athletic field. There's no one there for us. It's us and our partners on the court or on the field. So there is a difference. There is a difference. And just going through, when I saw this came up, when I read the news story and realized this was up, I spent 15 minutes and went through the archives of Referee Magazine online. That's a publication dedicated to sports officiating. And I came up with 23 reports of attacks upon sports officials that happened in the last couple of years. Here's another soccer referee who was killed in Utah by a punch. A Florida youth football referee beaten by coaches and a player. Youth football referee. Here we go, an umpire at a children's softball game punched by an angry grandfather of a player. A teenage umpire assaulted by the coach of a team of 11-year-olds. How do you get so worked up about 11-year-olds? A high school basketball referee attacked by a spectator after a game. Elementary school basketball referee attacked by spectators after the game. Junior high basketball referee attacked in the hallway after the game. I could keep listing them, but the materials are in your packet in front of you. You can read them. And the problem is so widespread that 21 states have enacted laws similar to the bills under consideration. 2 other state legislatures have adopted resolutions condemning attacks upon sports officials. I don't think those states with resolutions really went far enough, because you know how many people read your resolutions, your staff members. So I have presented to be placed into the record these materials from the National Association of Sports Officials. There are the Referee Magazine archives with the attacks, but also I have for you the 2014 Officials Legislative Scorecard, which is a map showing how different states have dealt with assaults and batteries against sports officials. It covers some other issues for sports officials as well. And then a compendium of the different laws that the other states have passed. And it will show you, the map shows you how widespread assault legislation already is, and the compendium tells you how other states have dealt firmly with this issue. Now, even after hearing the testimony and reading the materials, you may still ask, how will this protect sports officials? I mean, we already have crimes against murder and manslaughter, but people, in fits of rage still commit those crimes. And we already have assault and battery laws. People know it's against the law, but the crimes continue to occur. What we need to do is change the mindset of the public. Prosecutors need to take the crimes more seriously. Now, for the assault that you'll see in the video, and it's part of the record, I mean, I gave it to the clerk to put in the record, so the video is available to you.
The clerk is going to make sure we get the email, so we will all view it.
Yeah. I mean, in that case, in that assault at Seaholm High School, the Birmingham Police Department sought misdemeanor charges against the attacker, but the city attorney chose to drop the charges before trial. The city attorney didn't take it seriously. Now, if you make this crime a felony, you tell people around the states that assaults upon sports officials are serious matters, and a county prosecutor pursues the case. We need to educate the public. The bills, if they become law, would return youth sports and community sports and school sports to the proper perspective. Maybe the law will make people think about the role of the referee or umpire, and the law might cause more level-headed players and coaches and spectators to intervene before situations boil over, just like the widow of the soccer official discussed her more recent experience with you. And would-be attackers might think twice before they act out their anger. And the law, if it's enacted, would teach people that violence and rage are not appropriate responses when your son or daughter is called out on strikes. Civility and sportsmanship have to rule the day. In the materials that I've provided you and put in the record, there also are emails from Harold Betty, a Detroit basketball official, Matthew Riley, a Waterford baseball umpire, and Thomas Stopczynski, a Charlotte football official, where they describe confrontations and express support for their bills. Now I've addressed you as a sports official, and I'd like to change hats for a moment and just talk to you as a lawyer and law professor. I do have a few concerns about the bill as written. First, I would limit the crime to those who actually assault, batter, or assault and batter an official directly. I would eliminate the reference to anyone who solicits or encourages another to commit the crime. And I'd eliminate any criminalization of the speech through social media. I personally am not aware of anyone soliciting attacks upon officials. It's generally someone that's angry at a game that does it. And frankly, most people who shout "kill the ump" don't mean to be taken literally. They're just venting. And beyond my First Amendment concerns about Facebook or Twitter posts, we as sports officials, we're used to hecklers and booing. That comes with the territory. We're big men and women. We can live with it. What we're concerned with are the sticks and stones that can break our bones. Not name calling. When we make a bad call, we expect to hear about it. When you do it for 20 years, you're going to hear about it a time or two, or 40. And what we don't want is what you would have seen in the video, which is some enraged idiot chasing us down a hallway, getting in our face, provoking a confrontation, taking a swing at us, or worse. My second concern is the bill limits the crime to assaults and batteries that occur at a sporting event. And I put in quotes, "at a sporting event," because many assaults occur after the sporting events, like what the video shows. An angry spectator or coach is waiting for the referee in the hallway or the parking lot after the game. And that's happened to me several times, fortunately, just with angry words, never with physical violence. I'd especially want to be covered by the legislation an assault committed by someone who looks up the address of the referee online or in the phone book, stalks an official before committing the crime. So I would broaden the crime's definition to any assault committed because of the victim's status as a sports official. People watch that Lions game against the Cowboys. There might be some nut that lost a lot of money on it that's going to go after the referee who, the head linesman who, changed that pass interference call. People are that crazy about sports now to do something that way. And finally, I just want the record to make clear, looking at Section 3B of Bill 31, that's intended to broadly define what is a sports official. Sports officials go by many different names. In football alone, you have a referee, an umpire, a line judge, a head linesman, a side judge, a back judge, a field judge. In other sports, you have scorers, linesmen, goal judges. And I wouldn't expect the statute to name them all, but the record should be clear that the definition is to be broadly construed. You may find the compendium helpful in doing that. If you look at the definition of a sporting event or sports event and sports official that Alabama and North Carolina have enacted, I think they're both quite good in their breadth and their clarity. And you might consider similar language to replace Section 3 of Bill 31 as it's been introduced. North Carolina also criminalizes assaults and batteries which occur immediately following. I think those are the two words they use, immediately following a sports event. which I believe is necessary to achieve the desired result. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, thanks.
Senator Shoemaker.
Do you have those changes written down? Are they in the green packet here?
If you look in the packet, the first paragraph of the Alabama section, it's right behind the map,
Oh, okay.
has those, and also if you look in the section for North Carolina, the definitions of sports official and sports event are included in those.
So
And you
these
might
are all
find,
your suggestions for the changes?
I would look for those too, for those definitions.
Okay.
And add language, which I have not marked up anything, that would make it a crime to assault a sports official immediately following a sports event or because of that official's status as a sports official. Because it might be a day later where someone gets stalked down because they made a call that cost someone's poor child, the chance to win a trophy.
Would you be willing to give the bill sponsor kind of a marked up copy?
Absolutely.
Senator Beda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for, that's very thoughtful testimony and suggestions on there too, and looking at your document there and listening to some of the testimony and as well as some of the comments of some of my colleagues up here. One of the issues is there anything else that we can do? I mean, we've all talked about, well, what something's happened in our culture today, that there's this anger, this violence that seems to be perpetrated almost on a daily basis. And is there any other type of models out there that we should look at in addition to what we're looking at over here?
Well, it might be helpful. I mean, I think Senator Jones mentioned, posting signs. And, the question is, where do you post a sign to inform people that assault upon a sports official is a felony? Maybe you post them at, the entrance to school athletic facilities, community athletic facilities, but you have such a broad area that these could be posted. I mean,
Maybe you put it on the ticket.
well, on the ticket, but even, when you go talk about youth games, I mean, they're just, an empty field in Livonia could be where, someone's playing soccer and they use it for a game. So, that might be a helpful idea, but I'm not sure how you implement it on that broad a scale.
And it seems like you need a public relations campaign to inform people and to really educate people on consequences of their actions. Every action has a consequence, and maybe it's whether this legislation or related to this legislation, but I'm just curious because you gave us that multi-state chart there, whether you've seen anything else that you think might be good to have as an addition to this.
And I also, and I also think it is necessary, to make this a more severe crime than simple assault and battery. And I think the example at Seaholm where, a city attorney, it's a misdemeanor, it's a nothing. Let's not waste our time on it. If this is a felony, there's a county prosecutor that's going to look at that video and pursue the case. It's a little different than a city attorney that's getting paid a flat fee, by a private.
Well, I agree. We need to move on.
Okay.
Because we've limited on time. Camaria Douglas from Rochester Hills.
Hi, my name is Camaria Douglas, and I am a basketball official. I have been officiating basketball for the past 10 years. I've played basketball since I was about 6 years old, so I've always been around the sport. I've played since I was a young girl all the way up into the collegiate level, and as far as officiating go, I've been officiating for the past 10 years, and it seems like the past 5 years or so, the acts of coaches or fans or parents has drawn some attention in the southeastern Michigan area as far as the way they conduct themselves towards officials. Officials alone are kind of on a separate platform. When you walk into the gym, everybody has this perception that officials are out to get you or officials are bad or they're cheating, and that's not even the case. Myself being around basketball, I am very passionate about it. I put everything into officiating. I now officiate from a Division II level and down, and I myself have been a victim of being assaulted in a men's league at Lifetime Fitness. I was refereeing an adult men's league, and a gentleman who was an ex-NFL player didn't like a call. He got a technical. Then a couple plays later, I made another call, and he disagreed with that, and he received a second technical, which then he is ejected. Upon him leaving, this is a 6'8", 350-pound man, ran up into my face, chest bumped me, like was pointing his finger in my face, took his sweaty jersey off, threw it in my face, and nobody in the gym did anything because of his stature, and they were maybe intimidated. So I was there by myself. I didn't know if he was going to hit me or whatever, but I feel like the people aren't aware of this, or they don't think that there's any consequences or carry any weight as far as being assaulted as an official. And I feel like people nowadays think that it's okay to do such an act. Even reffing middle school games, little children games, I've been followed to my car. I've been called every name out of the book. And there's even some situations now where, fortunately, I can kind of pick and choose where I want to ref, where I just don't choose to ref anymore because I don't feel safe. And it's really unfortunate for me because I just love being around the game. I love the passion that, you know, the children have to go out there to perform and learn about the sport. I mean, I feel like officials are there to kind of help educate and show the way as far as being good sportsmanship, being good sports, being just an aid to facilitate the game. And I feel like officials at times don't get the respect that they need to get because that's a hard job. Not everybody can be an official. It takes a special type of person to be an official, and you have to have a certain amount of thick skin, but there is a line. There's a line. When it comes to the point where you're being followed to your car, you're being called every derogatory name in the book, there should be penalty, and especially when it comes to even putting your hands. I've been followed by grown men. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a male on a male or a male on a female. Unfortunately, like, they get that heated in the moment when it comes to their team and disagreement of a call that they feel that they can take matters into their own hands and then pursue to seek vengeance on an official, which is unacceptable. Unacceptable. So obviously I'm an advocate and I support the bill that is trying to be passed. So.
Okay, thank you. See no questions, thank you. James Gillman Jr. Of the American Youth Soccer Organization.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim DeBray-Bander. I'm the section referee administrator for AYSO, American Youth Soccer Organization. I represent the volunteer side that Senator Hood referred to earlier. We have over 500,000 players nationwide, and here in Michigan alone, over 4,000 volunteers that would be covered by the additional protections of this proposed legislation. I'm here on behalf of AYSO to strongly support this bill to address the growing trend of assault and abuse directed towards us, sports officials. As an entirely volunteer organization, AYSO struggles daily to find enough volunteers to meet the needs of our players. Especially difficult is recruiting volunteers and volunteer referees. Number one reason given as to why people are unwilling to volunteer is because they don't want to be treated the way they see other referees being treated. Once we actually get volunteers to sign up, we spend 8 hours training them, we spend countless hours mentoring them, getting them ready to take the field, and approximately half of them will quit before the end of the season. Another 10% will not return after the end of the season. Again, the number one reason is due to abuse from coaches and spectators. And I disagree with the statement earlier, sticks and stones may break bones, but it's the words that prevent us from meeting the needs of the children of our organizations, because those are the words that prevent our volunteers from coming back. We believe that the passage of this bill will help send a strong message to those participating in and spectating sporting events that this type of abuse will not be tolerated. And further, we feel the passage of this bill sends a message to our sports officials that we support them.
Okay, thank you. See nothing further? Natalie Queen, representing officials.
Hi, my name is Natalie Queen. Thank you for having us here today. I was verbally assaulted at Jackson Community College after working a game by the assistant coach, Eric Salisbury. What had happened was the game before, I had worked a game previously at that college and ejected one of Jackson's players. And then the next time I worked at the school, at the end of that game, I was walking up from my locker room with another official, thank goodness, and the door behind us locks. So at the top of the stairwell was the assistant coach waiting for me because of me kicking out a player in a previous game. I was verbally attacked, and I believe I would have been physically attacked if I hadn't been with a male official. There was game security there, but not police. Police were not called. They would not release video footage, and you have no rights as an official. I also work at the Division I level and the Division II level where you have a host, and that person is paid to stay with the officials and host the officials and protect the officials. And at these lower levels, officials are not protected because they don't have hosts. And that coach received no consequences. As a matter of fact, when I went to my first Division III game this year, he was the assistant sitting on the bench. And I had to walk over there and shake his hand. I was asked not to come back to Jackson Community College because of what happened, of what he did, and I don't think that's right. And just because we put on stripes doesn't mean we shouldn't have protection, and we don't. And I do believe that we do need protection because nothing is happening to these fans or coaches or people that are doing this. You know, I do believe we can't fix stupid, but stupid can have consequences, and they need to be severe so people will start taking this seriously. Because we as officials take our job seriously. And like Kamaria said, I officiate with Kamaria, we don't go out there to cheat anybody. We're very honest. We go out there just to do our best. And we know we're going to have thick skin. But we do not deserve to be assaulted verbally, physically, you know, and God forbid, death. So bullying has consequences. Bullying has laws. And I don't think it's setting out a different type of person by passing this bill. I just think it's gotten to a level that we need to because people do not have consequences, and that's why they do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your words. James Dyer of the American Youth Soccer Organization supported the bill. Does not wish to speak, and I believe that's all the cards. Very well. Senator Hood, I think you've done some good work here. I've talked with different members of the committee, and they think that your bill needs a little more work, probably taking out the social media section, maybe limiting it to the actual game and right after the game, leaving. Certainly, whenever you have a crowd and you do an assault, it could turn into a riot. We could have multiple deaths, as happens all over the world. So I think you're on the right track, but I think it needs some work, and I would invite you to continue working with members of the committee and see what we can come up with.
Yes, sir, most definitely. Open to working with everyone on the committee and everyone that's here testifying and anyone else that has some input on this to make this a better bill and hopefully a perfect bill that we can present before the committee in next couple weeks or so, and we can get the bill moving out and with your support and the committee support.
Okay. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members.
All right. We will now take up Senate Bill 53. Senate Bill 53 basically just allows federal police officers to be treated as Michigan police officers in Michigan law. Years ago, it was written in Michigan law that the state police, the sheriff's deputies, city police, township police, village police, upon retirement, there were certain areas they could carry their guns in, and I believe this is very appropriate. We want to continue to have this protection. However, for some reason, they simply forgot federal police officers. Federal police officers have faced drug cartels, organized crime, terrorists. I mean, certainly, many, many federal police officers have a bullseye, a target on their back. This simply would treat them in Michigan law the same as all other retired police officers, retired in good standing. I have Jason Gillman. Wishes to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I speak on behalf of Michigan Open Carry. I am a member of their legislative team. I'm a legislative assistant. Respectfully oppose this legislation because it's what we call a carve-out bill. Basically, it's exempting a certain class of people from being able, or from being prohibited of concealed carrying in the enumerated locations specified in MCL 28-425-0. It's, everyone should basically be exempted is our view, everyone or no one. And it's interesting because listening to the testimony previously for Senate Bill 31, you know, they're talking about being assaulted, which is awful, much less murdered, ridiculous. What's the most effective way of protecting yourself? A firearm. However, these officials, the general public, they're not allowed to conceal carry in these designated areas. Schools, a sports arena or a stadium seems really appropriate for the previous legislation that was discussed, sir. So that's why we think that, or that's rather why we oppose this bill. We have attempted to contact your office in a way to make it better, something that we could actually support, though. So,
your theory is interesting. Are you suggesting that sports officials, like referees, should have a gun on their hip during the game?
I'm not sure how the logistics would work out, to be honest, sir. But you know, however the logistics work out, basically everyone, sports official, a parent of the opposing team, or whoever, they should have the ability to conceal carry in these zones that they currently cannot conceal carry, while specifying that certain individuals can. And Michigan Open Carry doesn't think that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Senator Kobeck.
Jason, thank you very much for your testimony.
My pleasure, sir.
I understand it's more of a, the opposition is more of a case of you're concerned about inoculation, essentially, and as just another, you know, carve out, if you will.
Yes, sir.
And I think we're at subsection K now, or subsection L with this, as far as the number of groups that are actually allowed to enforce their Second Amendment right by actually carrying a concealed weapon. I'm in the mode where this is frustrating for me as a citizen who hasn't been through law enforcement to actually go into those gun-free zones and not have the ability for me to go off and as a CPL holder to actually go off and carry a concealed weapon. And I mean, the same argument as we had from the previous as far as having carve-out for specific groups of people. Second Amendment applies to one group but doesn't apply to another group. I do have a concern in that regard. Now, having said that, anytime you're opening the door, and I call them needle mover bills, if you will, that are moving in the area of giving more and more people protection under their Second Amendment rights, I'm in favor of it. So I have to take exception with the fact of opposition to this, because there's still a group of people, as the good chair pointed out, that do have a genuine concern for why they would want to make sure that they had that right protected. But and so it's in that needle mover, it's getting in the right direction. But I personally would prefer it so the law applies equally to everybody.
If I may, sir, you bring up a good point. you talk about, yes, as these types of bills go through, obviously more people are exempted. But our concern with that is actually, as you get these groups exempted, then you start getting a smaller and smaller group, you know, who wouldn't have a voice, because obviously if you're already exempted, what's the purpose, you know, why would you really have any desire to go out of your way to advocate for everyone being able to conceal carry in these zones? And that's probably one of our main concerns. Obviously, it's a carve-out, but it's also taking away the reasoning for more people to advocate against these prohibitions on where you can conceal carry.
Okay, well, as you know, this committee has voted to expand before. It may be will again, but I can't stand by while federal police officers who have protected your life as well as mine facing organized crime and drug cartels and terrorists can't protect themselves.
Oh, I understand.
But I will continue to advocate for an expansion, what you want. Seeing no further questions, Senator Beda.
Just real quick, I mean, you're basically just saying you'd like to see elimination of no carry zones, period, right?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, that's what I thought you said.
Absolutely, sir.
It wasn't so much an expansion, it was just like get rid of it.
Yeah,
Just say
exactly,
that.
sir. We think everyone should be treated equally and have the same ability to defend themselves in these areas.
Okay, no, that's a dangerous world.
Voted on it last year. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Keith Roselle from Ada.
I'm here representing basically myself and my family, and I have a prepared statement I'd like to just kind of go through, and again, it might address some of the issues that were just talked about. My wife and I are longtime concealed pistol license holders, and we will support legislation that would improve existing CPL law for everyone. But this legislation seeks to carve out special privileges for a select group of people, and for that reason, I am opposed to it. There are groups of people that are already exempt from no-gun zones, such as active and retired law enforcement officers, judges, and even private investigators. They have proven that guns can safely be carried concealed in these zones. The mere presence of a gun does not precipitate violence. For those of us that are not exempt from the no-gun zones, we see this restriction as a hindrance to our ability to potentially defend ourselves and our families in these areas. The very fact that retired federal law enforcement officers are now seeking this exemption further shows that these no-gun zones should be abolished altogether. I would, of course, support a bill that would relax unnecessary restrictions for all CPL holders, but this bill does the opposite. By carving out exceptions for only a select group of people, it reinforces the idea that there are special classes of people that are afforded rights that aren't available to everyone. I reject the idea that some people are worthy of rights where others are not. I'm offended by the implication that there is a group of people that are considered inherently more trustworthy than I am. This mindset is arrogant, and those that feel this way should frankly be embarrassed.
Okay, that's no insult, Pete. Continue into the insult, Pete.
I apologize, my prepared statement was a little bit impassioned, I suppose, so we'll continue. If it is not a perceived superior moral character, then what else could make federal officials feel worthy of this right? Some might argue that these federal employees face an elevated risk of attack due to their former career. This is a false narrative. All kinds of people across the state have circumstances that put them at risk, but they are not given this exemption. As a physician, for example, I could argue that I am at increased risk of retribution from a disgruntled patient. In Boston, for example, on January 21st of this year, Stephen D. Passeri entered Brigham and Women's Hospital where he proceeded to shoot and kill 44-year-old Dr. Michael J. Davidson. The shooter was angry that his mother died under Dr. Davidson's care. My point is, you cannot know who is at high risk. It should be up to individuals to assess their own risk level, not up to the state to determine who is worthy of the right of self-defense and who is not. Some may contend that additional training is the central issue for abolishing no-gun zones, or at least creating an enhanced CPL. If this is the case, then craft legislation that identifies additional training that all CPL holders could obtain. but don't create legislation that carves out a special class of people with unique rights that are out of reach for the rest of us. In conclusion, if this bill could be made to abolish no-gun zones for all CPL holders, then I would fully support it. If, on the other hand, it only creates a special privilege for a select class of people, then it should be soundly rejected.
All right, seeing no questions, thank you for your testimony. Okay, I see no further business today. No vote today. So, we will close the committee. Thank you for your attendance.